And again, Blind Guardian Talk. Good to have you here. Ronnie, Mark. Wonderful Mr. Charlie Bauerfeit, life and world saver, many times. And my friend in cake, Matthias Wiesner. Good to have you here.
Yep.
Thanks to be invited.
Yeah, so let's start with you two guys introducing yourself and also start telling us how you got involved with Blind Guardian from the beginning.
The first time I was actually invited because I knew a little bit how to run computers. Well, I was
true.
one of the first, whatever. But I was very early involved in all the computer recording. And you guys had the system that Toman was supposed to do his pre-production for the record on, and something went wrong there because I remember driving down here, going to the bunker where you had like the rehearsal room. And like I was there for like a whole afternoon just trying to repair some stuff with the computer so Toman could continue. And when we did that, or while we were doing that, we were talking about a lot of things, music and blah blah blah. And that's the first time where I had closer contact with Toman about how to drum, blah blah blah, studio work and all that stuff. So I think that was around the time where he might have come up with the idea to say, maybe it's we could work together on the album. And then like a couple of weeks later, I think he called and asked if it was possible, like time-wise, if I would have time and blah blah blah. And then that's how we got hooked up for this.
He was running into trouble with his supposed technician, and
Oh,
he
yeah,
felt that.
yeah,
and
right, yes,
he mentioned that to us,
Yeah.
and he said, "Well, I'm not going to work with him. That is too risky. But I have spoken to Charlie, and he would be willing to do the job." And we all said, "Yeah, if you want to do that, then let's do it." We rented Caro Studio again, and that's where we,
That's where we started to work, and.
That was a short-term mission for you, like 10 days?
No, it was 3 weeks. And I was there as well.
We were all there, but it was a short-term mission because you were only planned in for doing the drum recordings.
For the drum recordings, I think they took a little bit longer. Even at that time, it was already. So he might be right that we ended up, having more than just 10 days. But it was supposed to be quite short time, and it then went a different way.
Yeah.
So so that's how we met, and then of course now we could go on with the whole process. But I think we come to that. So I think it's now your turn. Now you tell your story.
I think it was in 1989, and I was working in the same studio as you guys were on the second. You were on the second album, and I was
Caro Studio.
In the Caro Studio in Münster. And in a demo studio, I was working together with Rolf Köhler quite a lot on different pop projects. I was basically a bass player, or I also learned classical guitar when I was young. And I also learned how to work with computers because I like the idea to be able to also to build my own little band. This is how it started. To rehearse not only to a click track, but maybe to some backing tracks. And somehow Rolf and I came together. I don't remember this. I was in the same studio, and I guess you needed somebody for some flutes or strings.
Call it keyboards.
Keyboards. Yeah, and I was. Look at me. I was the guy that delivered the.
You haven't changed at all.
The evil sounds. I had to deliver the evil, dark sounds. And it was not that easy because I had the normal standard keyboard equipment at that time, and you had a lot of sounds, but not really evil or dark. I remember that you had a very favorite sound. I guess you remember it as well. I don't know if you ever used it, but that sounded a little bit like a mosquito on drugs. So this is you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's kind of medieval sound. In German, it's Krummhorn, a drum horn or something like that. Yeah. And every time we were looking for a sound, you said, "Hey, try this." I think we never used it. Yeah, this is how it started.
I was in love with this M1, Korg M1 keyboard.
I never had.
Okay.
You had one.
Yes,
Yeah.
we had this M1, and I was always using these sounds for the compositions, and then of
But
course
not in '89.
not in '89. No, not in
No.
'89. Later on, in the Imaginations and Nightfall. Yeah.
Later
But-
we had this emulator expanded thing that had all the classical sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what you liked.
Mosquito on drugs.
Mosquito on drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the guys liked it, and so you asked me again for the next album and for the next album. So it was
You were entertaining.
They couldn't live
And you
without
like
the
cake.
mosquito sound. did they?
Yeah.
So we had a couple of coffees, and it always turned out very well.
So coming to Nightfall, when you got into the studio, did they present the songs there for the first time to you, or did you listen to them
Yeah,
before?
basically, I think we had two different ways of working together. Of course, there were situations where I was in the studio in Münster. This wasn't a problem because I lived in Münster, but in Hamburg, it made more sense to present things. I think you always sent me some tapes where you had very clear ideas what you wanted to hear. So you had lines already, or pads or whatever, so complete playbacks, and yeah, it was my job to find nice sounds or maybe also to enrich it. And yeah, if I think about things like the Theatre of Pain thing, there of course, to be honest, I do not really remember why it became that big at the end, but you wanted to have an orchestra, and yeah.
Yeah, that was a basic idea, and we worked it out with to make it even more natural sounding and all
Yeah.
this. We really tried to have a synthesizer orchestra which sounds as original as
Yeah.
possible, and we were working on this, of course. But I remember, of course, you had prepared stuff, but for example, when we recorded in Hamburg, there was always coming ideas up during working in the studio, and you were there, and we had this, was it for Tommy Knocker in Alter 4 or something, or for then we extended the idea, and all of a sudden we said, why don't we do an introduction and some sounds and
Yeah.
cool stuff,
It
you
was
know?
Alter 4.
And we said, okay, since he's here, come on, let's try some things. And we were sitting there in the mixing room, and you had all your equipment there. And then you were, well, yeah, but what is your vision? Tell me a little bit more details. I said, yeah, some evil sounds, do something.
Mosquito.
And then you were going through all the 500 million sounds there in your library, and then at a sudden, yeah, that one, come on. And then you were setting up a mix of I don't know how many sounds until we said, yeah, wow, that's so cool.
I think there's never a black and white, or never a right or wrong. This is the problem. On the other hand, this is what it makes it so.
And in the beginning, you were always a little bit like not shy, but you didn't really know where to. You were not really sure where to go. And okay, you mean like this, or you mean like this? And then half an hour later, it was like, yeah, I know what I have to do. Come on, wait, and I have this, and I have that, and it was so dynamic working with you.
Yeah.
It was so awesome because you really, once you were on fire, you had this creativity, and then, wow, it got a flow, and the result was just amazing for us.
Nice to hear.
A little too late. We should have done that earlier. Story of my life.
Great.
So, well, as it's Nightfall here, it was up to date your most ambitious album. I mean, I think I read that you used somewhere between 80 and 120 tracks, which was a lot back then, and nothing today compared to how you work. But again, we mentioned that you went to Caro Studios again to record the drums, and then you should record everything here for the first time. A wise decision, considering it was a construction site.
Yeah, we always have been very optimistic, and we thought we could sort out things the easy way, always. But it always turns different. So we rented this place, and it was blank. And we thought, well, we build in a few rooms and then we can do the album here. But we basically failed to finish everything. But we were convinced we could do still most of the recordings here. But when we started recording the rest, it turned to be obvious that this would not be the case. So we were running late. We maintained 2 studios, this studio and the older studio we have had before. Andre was doing his rhythm guitars in that other studio, and we tried to come up with as much stuff as possible, because the studio in Denmark was scheduled already for, I think it was early winter 1998, and Denmark was only booked for mixing because we thought we could finish everything here. But we were running into problems with our technicians as well, who were not capable of the hard disk recording system we have had. So we are not even to blame on that. This is where you come in again.
The guy who knows about computers.
We all of a sudden figured, well, we need someone who's doing the whole administration to have a keen eye or ear on, every step of this recording. Because the idea was Andre was recording with one engineer, Markus, and Oliver, who came in as a bassist. No, you brought him in. Was supposed to record with the other engineer, and the other engineer was not able to do anything. I did a few recordings with him. Markus did a few guitars with him, but we did not really progress. So it became obvious that you need to do more than just the administration. And he doesn't look like, but people really, like to work with him. So you might have had other obligations, but we were in need of a proper engineer. And so we asked him, well, can you do the bass recordings and control all the computer stuff and the administration? He said, yeah, I do that. So we booked you for the next 2 weeks, I think. And in this time we just figured, well, we will not get anywhere with that other engineer. So I started asking him, can you do vocals with me as well? Yeah, I have to move a few things into a different direction, but yeah, I can do some of the vocals, but I need to go there and there. And I say, yeah, we can fix it, and I can be done. Until that point, I was not. So we kept on working like this, but when we did finish, when we had to go to Denmark, we just realized it was still 50% of the music we had to finish there, and that has driven us into another dilemma, because we were supposed to do the mixing and not the recording. So we had to book a second studio in Denmark, which you were in charge of. Yep. And it turned more and more obvious that the computer systems were too much for the other engineers, and they lost stuff, to say it this way, and you had to refine it. Yeah. And this is how it continued.
I think the first thing I remember, besides when we did the drums with Thoman in Hamburg, which was very adventurous, because I normally you have like a finished layout of songs where someone plays to, and this was like we had like click track, and Thoman had the ideas and blah blah, and then we started working on stuff, and it just but maybe we can try this, and then we just got hooked so well that let's try this break and this break and this, and maybe we can play that in double time. And then you were still like working at the other studio on songs, and then we said, you have to come over, listen to that. And we just got carried away, with the 120 tracks, with a lot of tracks at hand. That's just what happened, and it was really very creative, and like I said, we clicked very well. But at the other hand, because Thoman is such a physical drummer, we had, he could not lay back on checking out ideas. He always had to play 101%. So he was just banging in this drum kit, and it's always the heads. We were halfway through a song, and the heads were gone. They were like so dead, you couldn't use them anymore. And I was living in Hamburg, so every second day I bought new heads, brought them down to the studio, and in the middle of the song we put new heads on, and then we continued for another third of the song, and then they were gone again, and it was just bizarre, you know. How many,
Bizarre.
well, you know, how often we changed heads and had to, because you know I was not used to have someone who was like fucking beating the shit out of the drums. But that's how he was. I mean, it was brilliant, and the result was really great. But you know, when we came up with all the little things, I think Hensi came, you know, in, and he was more and more like, I'm not sure if I, you know, want to continue play the bass on that, because it got more and more complex.
I was convinced.
Yeah. And he went like, maybe, you know, we should, think about have at least, you know, for the record now or whatever, see and get someone in to play the bass. And I was like, yeah, you know, of course. And I didn't know the guys, you know, well enough to just go like, maybe we should check out this guy. So yeah, everybody brought in some ideas.
Yeah, my ideas was like this. Do you really want to play the bass?
You were begging me to play the bass. That is the fact.
That was like, you know, it was, I don't know, anyways, I think we decided to give out like a song or two, you know, to people, and then just see what they come up with. And, you know, I had done the CJ's Even albums like a couple of months or even like a year before. So I knew that, you know, Ollie is like really into, you know, some weird stuff, let's face it, you know. So I went like, I know this bass player, I know, you know, he can do a lot of things, but, you know, maybe it would be a good idea to at least check him out. And, you know, so we sent out stuff, and I remember that, you know, some of the stuff that came back was really well recorded in studios, and you had a really great sound, you know. And then, like, the tape from Ollie, it sounded like a waterfall. It was recorded on, I don't know, so. But the ideas that were on there, we were like, fucking hell, you know, that might be really cool, you know, to, you know, bring in some new spirit.
It was better what I have had in mind.
Even better, okay. So, yeah, and you know, that's how I remember that we came up with the idea to
it was
ask
spectacular,
Ollie.
really.
You know,
It was really great stuff. All the other guys did okay. As Charlie said, the sounding was better. But the arrangements and the ideas Oliver came up with, they have been spectacular. So there was no discussion in the band. It was a wise choice. It lasted for almost 12 years.
I remember that that the studio here, I mean, the first night we drove down from Hamburg and we were finished with the drum, we couldn't find the fucking place. It was unbelievable. And Toman, he was driving with his own car.
That's
and
magic.
It was really bizarre, because at least like an hour or 1.5 hours we were just circling here trying to find the studio. Nobody knew where it was.
And then you were impressed by the facilities.
Yeah, and then it was like an open hall, you know, nothing in it, like these 2 boxes, and I went like, okay, that's gonna be interesting.
But we were so convinced, you know, it would work. It did not, but we were 100% convinced we could do everything here, and on our own.
Didn't we even originally ask Fleming to come here to do the mixing here? And he refused?
Yes. I think we asked him, but he said he doesn't like to work out of Denmark, and that idea was from the table immediately.
That was a mistake.
It would be funny to see him here. But,
on what?
But I think it was still, I don't regret anything, because it was the right vision to build the own studio. Yeah. Being in another place and in another studio gives you some qualities that you get out of your usual behaviors. That's a big plus, which we don't have here, because this is our home. You still go back to your home where you live, and you have the daily shit to carry around. While in another studio your mind is free from this, but anyways, you have more options and you have more time. You don't have this pressure that you have a booking and you cannot extend when you really need time, and we always need time. So for us it brings more positive aspects to record in an own studio, and the vision was there. We said, let's invest the money instead of spending everything for a huge production. And our productions were so long that we spent lots of money in other studios. And we said, why not investing it in good equipment? We built the rooms, and okay, we underestimated, but the we underestimated a lot, but the vision,
Trial and error.
the vision was good, and we learned from the process. Probably very important things for us to learn, and we built it step by step. The first production and maybe the second had to suffer a little bit from that, but we found ways to compensate the problems, and in the end we survived. We survived it.
I have to say it was a pretty corky start, because I remember like it was like these two rooms. No, like we literally had to hang like the stuff we bought for breakfast. We put into like bags and hang them outside the door, because we didn't want the mice to get onto the stuff. So that was the only chance. So every morning we came in,
there was
it
nothing.
was like
The
this,
nothingness.
everybody had his bag hanging on the door handle. So we could at least save our food. And I remember they all from the start they had this thing that they bought really great equipment. So Hansi had bought like a really expensive vocal chain, a really great microphone and blah blah. But because it was not a real studio, this like 10,000 mark microphone ended up in the wet hallway. It was just standing there.
But we used it yesterday. It still works.
Well, it got service because of you. You walked in and it was like, huh? This is a really expensive microphone just in the middle of all this trash. It was just standing there. You go like, okay. We had really, it was fun. It was really.
It was chaotic. It was fun, and at a certain point, we all thought, okay, this production will not make it to the end. But we knew a guy who knows about computers.
I believe we all slept well, so everything was alright. I did not have any concerns.
No, I think that the mood in that production was great. I mean, there was a couple of bumps along the road, but it was just very positive. I don't remember, it was always adventurous.
The essential thing was there, the creativity.
Yes, yeah,
that was
definitely.
the essential thing. And once you see that the results in the end, the outcome of this production is so productive, so cool, and you love the songs, then you are able to swallow all the bad things. It's much easier to go through this.
Yeah, it's time to dig into the contributions of Matthias. We started working with Blind Guardian at Follow the Blind album, and you do some work also on Tales. And then the biggest work up to date was the orchestral part on Theatre European from Somewhere Far Beyond. And after that, Andre actually started composing songs partly in another way, using computers and synthesizers. And I don't know how much you contributed with at Imaginations, but then of course Nightfall is a total other story because it has a total different atmosphere. So Andre, how you composed the stuff and how you brought it to life? That's basically the question.
I think at that time we had already some equipment. We were running a MIDI system, a sequencer with a program logic, that's what I remember, and we programmed some things here and there. I kept it very simple. I tried to bring in just basic melodies to if it was a flute or whatever, that someone can understand, okay, something has to happen here, an extra instrument or just a sound, a keyboard sound that is giving another dimension in the sound scheme, so people could understand what has to happen there. but of course the sounds that I used were cheap sounds and not really quality and not good enough for the final production. But for the songwriting it worked, you could understand what we mean. And once it was approved with Hansi and he said, yes, that's a good idea, the flute there or here, we sent this idea to Matthias and said, can you make this sound really cool?
Yes, this of course helped a lot, and I think, as you mentioned it already, it makes a big difference if you compose a song already with a keyboard, because then the keyboard has or whatever you want to present with the keyboard, orchestra or whatever, it plays a different role. It's not that you have a band playback only and then ask for some keyboards. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it was always this situation in between clear ideas, clear lines, and things that I, in the best meaning, had to follow. On the other hand, of course, I guess you were also open for minimum listening to ideas that I had. And
yes, it always got this dynamic, and you brought in alternatives and other layer sounds that would fit to the basic idea, and so the thing was growing, and that's what I really liked. It was always really creative and brought the basic idea to the next level. And yes, that's why we had this good chemistry to work together. And Charlie was coordinating everything, checking if it's working from your side production-wise, because you had a vision for more for the final sound than we had. We were focused basically on our instruments. I was focused on the guitar sound. Hansi was more focused on his vocal sound, and so. But Charlie had the overview, and he could say, yes, what Matthias is offering there could fit in the end what we need. This is what we need, or we need more, or we need less. And so yeah, it was always a teamwork. Everybody was giving in, putting in creativity and ideas, and Charlie was sorting out a little bit. Because my descriptions were chaotic sometimes, and he was the only one who could encrypt my language.
But on Silence, I remember that we three sat over there in the studio for days and days, and he go, oh yeah, we can do this, and it was sorting out was kind of hold it, I need to catch up. What's going on?
Yeah, but I think it's very important not to block yourself already while you do it.
No.
Yeah, I remember one motto, you also like motto that I once heard from Kalle, by the way. It was not one of your productions. If you're building a line, a groove or whatever, you should not think too much. Yeah, but this was what I did at that time. And I said, I don't know, I have something. I said, just play it. And only to find out that it's shit. Yeah, this is what I like. Because then you know what it is. Yeah, just do it and okay, like it or not. But you cannot speak about creativity, I think. You cannot speak about how to paint a picture or how to play a guitar or whatever. Yeah.
It comes very much out of the stomach, and that's what you were always doing. You know, you throw an idea in the air, and he went like doing some stuff.
Aware of that it's like that.
That's how I remember it, because I mean we were over there for days, and I mean it's a long song obviously, and we had like we just were poof poof let's try this, and it was just a very very creative time at that.
It's hard work.
Really great.
It's hard work because if you don't have the complete picture, you're going from one bar to the next, or maybe from 4 bars to the next 4 bars, and to decide is this a good idea or not, sometimes very hard. After hours, it's impossible.
But
yes,
you were very quick with this programming. That was helping a lot, because then it's more intuitive. We never had to wait like half an hour until you were ready to show how it sounds. We were talking about ideas like strings. Let's have a string like that, and you were programming, and a minute later it was ready and we could listen to it, and that was really helping. that was fast. We were really fast and trying out a million ideas in one day.
Yeah.
Even that we were completely exhausted in the evening, but
Yeah.
but we did a lot.
And I would like to say that, yeah, but if I would have had to play that fast, it would be impossible. So this was my way to handle it. So I learned a lot of strategies to get out of it. But I think what makes it, I like the programming because you can work on a phrase. For example, if you just spoke about strings, if you little, it's very important that you have the different velocity on the notes, and it can make a big difference. So have only a little bit or a little bit. You so often hear songs on the radio where they have a brilliant sound. It's like a bap instead of wah, yeah. And this makes a difference.
We are back in business.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you did not only have a lot of keyboards in the album, but also a lot of percussion. Was it all done by Toman?
On
Nightfall, yes.
On Nightfall, yeah. I think this was his thing. I mean, it almost seemed like if he didn't want to play drums, he just said, "I want to play percussion." It was like kind of, there's 20 seconds of nothing. I have 2 timpanis. Or he was, or he was. This was one of the in Nightfall. We wanted to record some hits, cymbal hits, like classical, not like a, but with 2 cymbals. So he ordered this brilliant, nice pasty cymbals in, and they sent it in, and we were setting up the whole thing, and he was standing in the big room, and I ran, when you say ran the tape, but I ran the computer, and I just looked in, and he was taking these 2 cymbals and just. There was no sound coming out because you play them like this, so the sound can evolve, but he was just boom, and they turned around. He hit them so hard that they turned around like Chinese cymbals, the China cymbals, like going clink, and then he stepped on them to break them. And I was like, you cannot be serious.
So Toman.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Brute force. Oh yeah. Yeah, but he did all the stuff. Like and I have to tell this story as well about it. He had a Brazilian rain stick. I don't know what you use it for in metal, but it was it's a wooden stick, and it has some small metal things in that, and you just have it put it up and go. And it sounds like rain. That's why it's called a rain stick. And he brought this thing to the really nice Caro studio, and he just laid it in the corner because obviously we didn't start with the rain stick recording. And like after a couple of weeks, he went back there into this corner, and he just took this originally Brazilian, I think it was Brazilian, South American rain stick from the rainforest, and he took it and went like, oh. And it had like, woodworms, I don't know what they're called, in it. And they went into the wooden floor of the studio. And he went like, oh.